Emergency pod. Let's go.
New coach.
You hyped, Mace?
It's too early in the morning for that. Jeez.
Let's go. Nathaniel Hackett.
Welcome to Denver, Nathaniel.
Yes, Hackett season is upon us. The Denver Broncos have a new head coach as of, I think, officially 6:15 a.m. this morning. Funny little note here. I found out this morning that this news actually almost broke at 12:30 last night. But the Broncos were able to push it back, hold it off, don't break the news until tomorrow morning. So I guess
wish it had broken last night at 12:30 in the morning.
I
was wide awake then.
I was awake too, but I was here at the bar celebrating an electric Avs win. It would have been an interesting show had we gone live at 12:30 last night. But the Broncos got their guy, and what an interesting way, the way that this kind of all went down. George Paton clearly loved Nathaniel Hackett, and we find out today that it was his favorite. Zach, you thought they would have brought the final guy to a steakhouse. The plan was to go to a steakhouse, but I said also maybe a Los Dos is his favorite spot, and he wanted to take his new guy there.
The plan was to go to Shanahan's.
Yes, of course.
So that's a pivot. That's a new era because no longer Elway's.
Isn't Hackett technically a part of the Shanahan tree or not? He definitely comes from the West Coast, Bill Walsh.
Yeah, I mean, he's an indirect. He's a branch of a branch. Because you'd consider him a branch of LaFleur, who's a branch of McVay. He's a branch of Mike Shanahan because LaFleur was on that Washington staff. So it'd be Mike Shanahan, LaFleur, Hackett.
There you go.
And then, of course, his father, Paul Hackett, did a lot of West Coast offense work, but don't believe he was ever in San Francisco where it originated. He did guide the West Coast offense with the Chiefs back in the 1990s.
So there you go. That was the plan. Yeah. But George Paton says, "No, I want to take you to my spot. Yeah, just you and me." That's yes, of course, and that's an interesting twist in it. So, but then George Paton, I guess playing a little hard to get, slow playing his guy. Essentially saying, hey, I want to, bring these other guys in. And then last night, whether by design or by a little stroke of luck for Hackett, I'm going to say by design, the Jacksonville Jaguars announced that they want to interview him. Or that news comes out. And at that point, George Paton said, oh, no, not letting, my top candidate go on another date. I'm calling in the ring. And that's why it almost broke so late last night. Broncos instantly got on the phone with Nathaniel Hackett and said, all right, let's get this thing done.
And it would have been a second interview for Nathaniel Hackett. And as we've talked about this week, typically you don't want to let your second interview leave if that's going to be your guy. So that's when George Paton said, no way, you're coming home, baby. And Nathaniel Hackett will be the next coach of the Denver Broncos. And I got to give George Paton so much credit here because Dan Quinn was the front runner from the very beginning. Then Dan Quinn was one of the finalists. Then it appeared Dan Quinn was going to be the last interview the Broncos had, and they weren't going to let him leave. But George Paton truly made this an open search. Dan Quinn would have been the head coach of the Broncos if George Paton had done it how the past few coaching searches in Denver had been done, where you just go with the front runner, you just go through the song and dance of interviewing other people. But no, George Paton was open to it, and man, he fell in love with Nathaniel Hackett.
Yeah, and I have to give credit to him too because I think we're still in the learning process of how George Paton operates. And, I got to apologize for thinking he's too much like Elway. He's not like Elway. He keeps kind of throwing us curveballs here from what we're used to. Even, go all the way to having Hackett in first if Hackett was their, the true favorite. And that's certainly what it seems like here. So he does things a little differently. And I love it. I love that we're kind of learning George Paton on the fly. He threw everyone a curveball here, going back to the first interview to make the hire. And what an exciting day this is as the Broncos finally, thank God, hire an offensive mind to be their head coach.
Yes, thank you, offensive mind. So they went different that way, but they went the same as it's a first-time head coach. He does have a little more experience. He's been an offensive coordinator for 8 years in the NFL. He's been at 3 different stops in terms of being an offensive coordinator, so you hope that background is different, especially than Vance Joseph, who only had 1 year as a defensive coordinator. But man, the Broncos needed offense so bad, and they finally get it.
Well, the biggest thing for them getting offense is what happens at quarterback.
Yes.
And that's and I think that's bigger than just hiring Nathaniel Hackett. I mean, you just go and look at the total offense ranks for that Nathaniel Hackett's been a part of as offensive coordinator, going back to Buffalo, 19th, 26th, 23rd. That year they were 6th in Jacksonville. They went all the way to the AFC Championship, and then right after that, 27th. Green Bay was actually kind of pedestrian in 2019, only 18th in total offense before being 5th and 10th in the last couple of years. So it's all about the quarterback, basically.
It is all about the quarterback, and I don't think George Paton hired Nathaniel Hackett because of his offensive prowess. I think it's a nice part of the resume, but this is a leadership thing. Everyone who crosses paths with Nathaniel Hackett absolutely loves this guy. Just in doing more research on him in the couple hours since I woke up this morning to the news, one thing that everyone talks about is how funny he is. Mm-hmm. Aaron Rodgers said this guy's hilarious. His presentations are legendary. You heard about a little bit about it in the reporting about the interview with George Paton, just that they were having fun, laughing, having a great time, and it really feels like he has infectious energy, and I think that is also what Aaron Rodgers used to describe him. Highly recommend, if you didn't read it when we talked about him the first time, go read that Nikki Javala piece on him. It's hilarious, just some of the things that he says, like he wanted to be a backup dancer for Justin Timberlake at one point in his life.
He's a Star Wars enthusiast.
Yes.
Puts Star Wars references in his play calls.
A lot of the stuff that I love about Mike McDaniel is kind of true of Nathaniel Hackett. Self-deprecating, willing, to make a joke of him about himself, and it's definitely that infectious energy that I think ended up getting him this job.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's something that the Broncos also really need. They needed a jolt of offense, and they needed a jolt of energy, especially from the head coach. What have we said? The team takes the personality of their head coach or their quarterback. Broncos have not had a quarterback that they could take the identity of. And you didn't really want the Broncos to take the identity of the past 2 coaches. So this is someone where, regardless of the quarterback, yes, they're going to need the quarterback in order to have success on the field, but in terms of building a culture and an identity as a team, this is something that the Broncos can absolutely build around, and it's a great identity to have, of fun, energetic, passionate. They're going to have so much excitement around them. That's something that's just that not only the players are going to love, the fans are going to love. It's going to just make the building a lot more enjoyable to be around. So this is you're right, Ryan. The offense is great, but he did hire him for more than just that. The personality he brings and everything we hear is that he's just extremely smart, which of course every head coach is going to be, but it's good to hear that. And one thing you do, look at social media this morning and look at what the Green Bay Packers players are saying about Nathaniel Hackett. They're bummed that he's leaving. They're so excited for the Broncos. They're saying it's a dub for the Broncos. So that shows you what type of player or what type of coach the Broncos are getting.
You think music's coming back to practices?
Oh, yes.
But you can't call him DJ Hackett because that's a former CU Buffs wide receiver who then played in the NFL for a little bit.
Yeah, covered him in Carolina. Yep.
Oh, yeah?
Well, why not call him DJ Hackett?
I mean, I guess you can, but shouts to DJ Hackett, yes, the actual player. The number one quote that is going to be on everyone's mind, I think, surrounding this hire is from Aaron Rodgers, which was, "I hope he doesn't go anywhere, ... unless I do."
Yeah.
That is really eye-opening, the way that he said that. And obviously Aaron Rodgers, likes to have fun with saying little things like that. But that's for real. He said he's the person who makes it fun to be there. And that was a big thing that Aaron Rodgers, I think, needed to come back and play this year. Remember, that wasn't always a foregone conclusion. So he really loves Nathaniel Hackett, and I think at this point, obviously Aaron Rodgers doesn't get to control where he's going. But at this point, I think it's fair to say he would like coming to Denver.
I think what this does in terms of the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes, I don't think this changes Aaron Rodgers' view on wanting to retire or not. I think that's going to be separate. That's going to be its own decision. And I don't really think it changes his view on wanting to go back to Green Bay or not. However, what this does change is I think the Broncos are without a doubt the number one team on Aaron Rodgers' wish list if he is to be traded. And we know that the Broncos are going to be open to that. So if Aaron Rodgers is put on the trade block, Broncos absolutely not just are the favorite, I think they're the home run favorite.
I think it specifically says that Plan A stands for Aaron, period.
I think so too.
Even though they're not hiring Hackett strictly because of Rodgers, and Plan B then becomes bridge vet to potentially somebody that you draft this coming spring. And that's another reason why you would want Hackett in there to supervise the development of a young quarterback if you don't get Aaron Rodgers. But Plan A stands for Aaron, I believe.
Do you agree?
Yes, I do. And Nathaniel Hackett obviously likes Aaron Rodgers. And look how much easier that would make his job.
I mean, it basically guarantees that his first few seasons will be a success, and that goes a long way as a head coach.
It guarantees what he just got to see firsthand with Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur is a first-time head coach, the winningest coach in his first 3 seasons. He can have that opportunity in Denver. And then, let's say when Aaron Rodgers then retires, well, then Nathaniel Hackett has a really good base in order to recruit another free agent or a veteran in the trade market, or he gets a couple of years of leeway in order to develop a quarterback.
Yeah, like Matt LaFleur, I mean, they've done well, but we don't really know how good a coach Matt LaFleur is at this point.
It's very true.
And we're about to, and if Rodgers leaves Green Bay, we're going to find out. And if I were betting money on a potential outcome, I would bet on Rodgers having already played his last game with the Packers.
I would think so too.
To me, it's more likely a question of retire or fresh start with a new team, most likely the Broncos.
I'm with you on that. Yeah. And that's like really exciting about this. But we got unlimited time to talk about Aaron Rodgers coming to Denver, especially now with the Hackett effect.
I think our friend Lindsey Jones, The Athletic, tweeted out that it's great news for everyone who does sports talk in Denver,
of course,
to hire Nathaniel Hackett, because you can just pencil in the next several weeks, Rodgers.
And it's also great news for the media in Denver because as I texted Broncos PR this morning, seems like a great podcast guest.
Yes, absolutely does.
Hopefully, it's a possibility that we can get him on because he does have that. I mean, he's kind of an entertainer. Like he has that in him, that desire to be a backup dancer for Justin Timberlake. He has entertainer in him a little bit. There's a bunch of really interesting videos you can go find with him, and he has that natural ability to talk. And that's one thing that honestly the last 2 Denver Broncos head coaches that failed, in Vic Fangio and Vance Joseph, I felt they lacked a little bit. They never looked comfortable in a public setting to me. Vic, a little more comfortable in his own skin, I felt like, but never, it didn't seem like he liked public speaking necessarily. And that's, we talk about it from a media perspective, but you got to stand up there in front of, 70 guys and give speeches, and it's one thing that in people I talked to that were on the team, they said Vic didn't really ever give speeches, which is so weird. When you think of a head coach, you imagine them motivating the team, giving a speech. And Vance, he had that leader of men moniker attached to him, but again, never, and talking to people who were on the team at the time, he wasn't motivating. He wasn't necessarily like a big motivator.
And he was letting stuff slide too. I mean, guys would show up late for meetings and there was no punishment doled out. And that's kind of the interesting thing. Leadership is not just kind of about giving a good speech and relating to players. It also means that sometimes you're going to have to be the authority figure.
But
that's and that can be a difficult line to walk sometimes. That balance between being buddy and being relatable, but also sometimes you're going to have to be the disciplinarian.
But also, just to tie a bow on kind of what I was getting at there, this guy Hackett is known for the way that he speaks, in front of the team. Again, as Aaron Rodgers said, legendary. And on top of that, he's very big on not just teaching, but teaching the new generation in the way that they learn. In fact, again, sharing tidbits from the Nicky Jhabvala article, which you should absolutely read. He, during COVID, got with a teacher and developed a system that the guys could use on their iPad, to, as he described it, feel like I'm right there with them learning. But as he said, for the YouTube generation, which I just love, whether you want to call the generation the YouTube generation or not, as we're live here on YouTube, hit us with a thumbs up. But I just love that he's thinking that way. And then the last thing, maybe to transition us a little bit. Well, I'll share that. Are we doing breaks? I don't even know what we're doing here.
I think we are doing breaks. Yes.
All right. Well, I'll share that on the other side. First, I want to remind you to come down to the DNVR bar. Come hang out. Electric last night. You get a Nuggets win. You get an Avs win.
Yep.
Avs with a crazy comeback and then win in overtime. It was awesome. Really great vibes down here. So always, come down here, come hang out, watch the games. Maybe you come down Sunday for the playoff games. Maybe you come Saturday for the Goaties, which are going to be an absolute blast. But I just want to remind you guys to come check out the DNVR bar.
And to celebrate this weekend, you may want to check out our friends over at Lightshade Dispensary, where they have everything for the consumer to the connoisseur. They've got everything you want, from the casual to that consumer as well. And they have Wana right now, and Wana Optimal's Fast Asleep 20 to 100 THC to CBD ratio. And if you need to get some shut-eye, what?
I was going to say, is that why you were so hard to wake up this morning?
Exactly. Wana can help you get that shut-eye and help you stay asleep too, depending on what's going on in your life. And so make sure to check them out. And if you use the code DNVR over at Lightshade Dispensary, whether online or in person, you'll get 25% off each and every visit. So check them out at Lightshade Dispensary and use that code DNVR.
Check out Sexy Pizza. You might go to the dispensary, get some good stuff there, and you might want some pizza afterwards, right? So check out our friends over at Sexy Pizza. What is Sexy Pizza, you ask? Well, with 13 years in the Denver community, Sexy Pizza is as local as it gets. Hand-tossed New York-style pizza. It's the best you're going to find in Denver. We had it over at our tailgates. I had it a couple of weeks ago. Got a big pepperoni and garlic pizza to take home. And you know what? I went ahead and got the large, and I was eating off it all week.
Let's go.
Yeah.
That's a move right there.
That's the whole point of pizza, right? It gets better when you reheat it. And by the way, I reheated my Sexy Pizza in my air fryer.
Game changer.
Exactly. Yeah. Tasted just as good as it was when I had that first bite sitting there in the Sexy Pizza down over in Platt Park on South Pearl. But they've got locations throughout Denver, and now a location in Trinidad. That's right. If you're down in the southern part of the state, want to hit up Sexy Pizza, you can do it right there. They've got 12, 16, or 18-inch crust, and they've got plenty of great sides and other things. I love their Italian salad. They've got wings. They've got pasta. They've got nuts. They've got dessert options. So check all that out at Sexy Pizza with their 4 Denver locations: Old South Pearl, Capitol Hill, Jefferson Park, Park Hill, and, of course, that new location down in Trinidad.
All right, I've shared a few of my favorite tidbits just about his personality from that Nicky Jhabvala article, but by far my favorite part from a football perspective was a quote that he had essentially about how he wanted his offense and he wanted his plays to be obviously that West Coast, but to be the explosive West Coast like Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan. And so just, to have that in your head, who is this guy? What does he want to be like? If that's the guy that he wants to be like, and he succeeds in being like a Sean McVay or a Kyle Shanahan, I think we're going to be really happy with this guy.
Absolutely. That's going to be huge from an offensive standpoint. And that also just shows how he's so comfortable in his own skin. And that's something that we've seen go wrong the past few head coaches. Try to be someone else, try to fit into someone else. And in terms of that leadership, Ryan, something you talked about right before was he does a good job catering to the new generation of players, but also he does a great job of catering to individual people. And that is a huge thing of leadership, understanding that not everyone is coached the same. So I absolutely love that about him. So let's talk about this offense. What can it look like? Is it going to be the two offenses that we're seeing this week? Is it going to be a combination of, Kyle Shanahan and the Rams with Sean McVay?
I think it's going to be, it's all that same tree, right? It's a mix of Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur, obviously, who does things a little bit differently there in Green Bay. But then you go back and you look at the offense that was successful with Blake Bortles and Leonard Fournette in Jacksonville, and they incorporated a lot of RPO. And I think that was one of the ways that he was able to maximize Blake Bortles is simplify the field. What's the RPO all about? Make one read and make your decision off of that. And so that's not, it's not part of those offenses. And I think especially when you see the games with Trey Lance, they try to incorporate it more. So depending on who the quarterback is, and obviously that's going to be the answer to all our problems, or the reason why the problems continue at a certain point. But you'll see, if they go, let's say Malik Willis, who we'll be seeing at the Senior Bowl next week, then you're going to see a lot more RPO, I think. But if they go with Jimmy Garoppolo because he's out there and available, then you're going to see it be, more of that, more of the stuff that you're seeing that, San Francisco does.
Well, and with that, sure, if they get Aaron Rodgers, it's a whole new ball game of what it's going to mean. If they get a top shelf quarterback, obviously that's going to be what drives it. But of course, he's had so much success with Aaron Rodgers these past 3 years. In the past 3 years, Aaron Rodgers likely 2 MVPs, 37 passing touchdowns to only 4 interceptions. So it'll be an air raid offense, no doubt. But if he doesn't get a top shelf quarterback, or let's say they go rookie young quarterback, Javonte Williams loves this hire. Absolutely loves it, because while Blake Bortles did have a career year under Nathaniel Hackett in Jacksonville in 2017, it wasn't because of Blake Bortles. It was because of what Nathaniel Hackett was able to do with that running game. He created the #1 rushing offense in the NFL in Jacksonville. And so maybe it's good news for Melvin Gordon coming back too, to create that punch. But man, this is fantastic news for Javonte Williams. And I love that Nathaniel Hackett is able to cater to his players and cater to his team's strengths. If he's got a really good quarterback, he's not going to pound the ball and take the ball away from him. He's going to make his quarterback happy. If he's got a not very good quarterback, a bad quarterback, well, he's going to give it to his strength, which is the running game.
It's pretty much said everything I was going to say. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's a tailoring to what you have. And if you have to ride Drew Lock this year, I think the offense would probably look a lot like the Blake Bortles offense, which did work in 2017, didn't really work well in 2016, didn't really work well in 2018. Of course, he was dismissed during that season as a result of the offensive struggles as well.
Yeah, and again, the offense is going to be a big part of this. We're already hearing about who potential defensive coordinator candidates are going to be. So that's, potentially part of this. But it'll be really interesting to see when we get to talk to Nathaniel Hackett, which hopefully we'll find out about here soon, what he says about this. What kind of what brand of defense does he want? What style of offense is he going to call? Is he more like LaFleur? Is he more like what he did with the RPOs? Is it all depending on the quarterback? I want to hear that stuff from him, and hopefully you have any scoop on when that may be?
No scoop yet. I would imagine they'd want to get him in the building in the next 24 hours or so. And of course, the Broncos typically, have someone in and don't let them leave. They let Nathaniel Hackett leave, but then they did not let him leave to Jacksonville. So a different process than we're used to. And I just love that George Paton was open to doing things different, and it worked out this way. But Ryan, one of the names that we're hearing to watch out in terms of a defensive coordinator is Rams passing game specialist. I don't have his name up in front of me.
It's a tough, it's a tough pronunciation. I believe it's Ivero is the name. And it's funny because I actually interviewed him all the way back at whatever the Super Bowl was between the Rams and the Patriots.
Okay.
That was in Atlanta. Went out to that Super Bowl, and the Broncos had just hired Vic Fangio.
Okay.
And so after they hired Vic Fangio, I looked to see if there's anyone, because I was going to media night where everyone's available.
Right.
Said, is there anyone on either of these staffs that have overlapped with Vic Fangio? And lo and behold, Ivero had overlapped with him. So I interviewed him, talked to him, and he couldn't have sung the praises of Vic any higher. You can probably find that article on the website somewhere. But yeah, that's the apparently he and Hackett are like buddy, best buds.
Exactly, and that's why he would be the leading front runner right now. You wonder what that means for the defensive staff, but what I hope that Nathaniel Hackett is able to do is something that George Paton has said, and I trust George Paton, but I just hope that Nathaniel Hackett gets to put his staff together, that he doesn't have to just fall back and say, well, you have Ed Donatel here, and these guys are under contract. We're going to keep them. Or same with the offensive guys. Look, Mike Munchak, a fantastic coach. Zach Azzani's done great things. Curtis Modkins, great things at running back. Those guys are great, but I want Nathaniel Hackett's staff in place here, not who the Broncos already have here. So if it means keeping a lot of these guys, because those are Nathaniel Hackett's guys, I love it. If it means starting fresh from everyone, I also love it.
Part of it is also being smart enough to understand when you've got quality and saying, okay, I want that as part of my staff. One of the things that I think we'll probably learn here in the next few days is, of course, about the defensive staff. I know that the indications I've gotten is that the Broncos wanted to see as much of this defensive staff kept together as possible. So I would not be surprised if everyone is asked to come back. And then on the offensive side, Hackett will probably have his own ideas that he wants in. That being said, I would like to think, with Mike Munchak in particular, that he would be wise enough to understand, A, how good a coach Munchak is, and B, that his teaching can work for whatever offense you're running, and that's been the case over the course of his career. And so the other thing, I like the idea of having Mike Munchak sticking around as somebody who's been a head coach on that staff, someone who can be kind of a guiding point. And he was there for Vic Fangio. See, there's an alarm going off. I'm used to getting up in the 9 o'clock hour. This is, and I hope he understands the wisdom of having some of these coaches back, because particularly on the defensive side, I think there's a real chance for the Broncos to continue building on the concepts that they've learned. By the way, Ed Donatel has never been a defensive play caller since getting to know Vic Fangio. So I don't think Ed Donatel, if he's calling defensive plays, it's going to be like it was back in the 2000s. I think he'll do better because he's running a different style of defense than he ran when he was last coordinator. It's kind of like Mike Shanahan post 49ers ran a different offense because he was exposed to those concepts. I think you'll see something similar from Ed Donatel if he's the coordinator.
And it does sound like it will be. I think I'm going to mess up the pronunciation. We'll learn it if we have to. But Ivero. That's at least the front runner for that gig right now. And I did find the article of him talking about Vic. They worked together 2011 to 2014 in San Francisco. But this staff is going to be important because he is a first-time head coach, like you mentioned, Mace. And it'll be interesting to see who he brings. Like we said yesterday, I don't necessarily want to see a reunion of, get the band back together from the team in Jacksonville that got to the AFC Championship, which is impressive. Not to knock that as not an impressive feat. But, I'd like to see some more creativity. But you also, if you're going to go first-time head coach, first-time defensive coordinator, if it is Ivero, then, you'd like to see some experience in the role on the staff. So it'll be interesting to see who he goes. Like you said, hopefully he does keep Munchak around. But this staff is going to be important, and I think as it'll also give us kind of hints as to the way that the Broncos are going to play football under Hackett.
Exactly. It's going to be such a fun style of football, I imagine, just because of what Hackett brings as a personality and also just how he adjusts. And that gives me hope that not just in a year in to year out basis, but we're going to see game plans that drastically change from week in to week out, and that is so important. It's something that we always say, coaches just overthink this stuff, but I think Nathaniel Hackett is someone who is going to be able to adjust on the fly like that, and that's something that you really need in this division, because now you got the difficult task of going up against Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert, and maybe even Derek Carr 4 to 6 times a year, and the Broncos just so desperately needed that offense to keep up with these guys.
The ability to do that, I think, is going to be predicated on what happens at quarterback, though. Because if you've got a quality quarterback, you already know you're in good shape at running back. You have a quality quarterback, you're going to be able to keep them off balance, and you're going to be able to, I think, adjust from week to week. If you don't have that, or let's say plan A doesn't come to fruition, and they end up going into the draft and nursemating a young quarterback through, like, I'd say, for example, I'd say Kenny Pickett is somebody that the Broncos may take a long look at. I think he would mesh very well with Nathaniel Hackett. But until he gets up to speed, or if Drew Lock is in there, if he's still having his ups and downs, that's going to limit how much of a chameleon you can be from week to week. If you get the quarterback, then I agree. You're going to be able to mesh your game plan and attack a defense's weaknesses every week and be able to keep them off guard. But again, all comes down to QB.
Here's great news, I think, for the Broncos surrounding the quarterback discussion. What have the Broncos tried to do since Peyton Manning left? They've tried to go to the value bin at quarterback, and how has that looked? It's looked awful. That's why the Broncos are in this situation right now. But I think Nathaniel Hackett, from his past 2 stops, the past 6 seasons, has learned a lesson. In order to have sustained success, you have to have a massive investment in the quarterback position, because while he did have a lot of success with the Jaguars in 2017, he had a top 5 offense in terms of points scored, top 6 offense in terms of yards, and the best rushing attack. That was short-lived. In 2016, the year before, they had the 7th worst offense in the NFL under him, and the next year they had the 2nd worst offense in the NFL with Nathaniel Hackett. And then what does he do the next year? He goes to Green Bay, and what does Green Bay do? They just have so much success under Aaron Rodgers. So I really think he's going to bring that. And that just seems so obvious to us of course you should have a huge investment in the quarterback position. Not to the Broncos. It has not been obvious. So I think Nathaniel Hackett's going to bring that mindset in here, which is going to be huge, whether it's trading multiple first-round picks for Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, whether it's taking a quarterback there at number 9 instead of a cornerback or another safer position, or whether it's even trading up in the first round to get your guy. I think Nathaniel Hackett's going to be the guy to push for that.
Well, and you know, the other day I had that tweet about how all 4 remaining coaches are offensive-minded coaches, and of course everyone responds quarterback. To me, though, the important part is that when you have an offensive coach, you are more likely inclined to make that big investment in the quarterback. You know, you look at these guys. Andy Reid, he wanted his guy, you know, so they went and got him Patrick Mahomes. Zach Taylor's a little bit different, but, you know, if you remember, that was a draft that also had Tua involved. A lot of people talking about that before the injury. So that one's a little bit tougher. But
they waited a year in Cincinnati in 2019 as well, because they weren't. They
knew they had to get Zach Taylor his guy eventually.
And Andy Dalton was a fine bridge.
Yep. Then you go to Kyle Shanahan. What they do, they make the big trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. Then they back up the Brinks truck for Jimmy Garoppolo, for better or for worse. And then Sean McVay, I guess, inherited Jared Goff. But then, of course, this offseason, they make the big investment to go get him his quarterback. So when you have that offensive guy, that's someone in the building with a ton of pull who's saying, hey, let's go get me my guy so we can have success here.
The Kyle Shanahan 49ers example is really interesting as well, because they did wait until mid-season. But the thing is, that was an example of where Kyle came in and he had somebody in mind, but they couldn't get him for a year. It was going to be Kirk Cousins. But then they trade for Garoppolo, and Garoppolo ended up being better than expected, and they realized, okay, let's just go ahead and re-sign him, bird in the hand versus two in the bush. You can debate the success or failure of that, but the fact is they've been to the NFC Championship game twice, so the decision has worked out. But that's why I think it's going to be interesting to see if Aaron Rodgers decides either to stay in Green Bay, which I still think is unlikely, or retire. What does the pivot become? Does the pivot become identifying one of these quarterbacks and saying, all right, Matt Corral's QB1 or Kenny Pickett is QB1. Let's do what we have to do to get him. Or is it going to be maybe kind of the Zach Taylor route, or even what the route could have been for Kyle Shanahan, waiting a year and then getting your guy one way or the other, and then this year becomes kind of a matter of making the most of what you have. I think that's the interesting thing, and it's my way of saying that the door may not be closed on Drew Lock just yet.
How many times have we said it's all about having a plan? Yeah. And I'm sure that was a big part of that interview process was, what is your plan at quarterback? There is a chance that, he said, hey, look, I don't think this year's the draft. Let's roll with Drew Lock, and we'll go back at it next. We don't know how that conversation went, but that had to be a big part of that conversation is, what is your plan? And George Paton apparently really liked that plan, because that was going to be a big part of this hiring process. Real quick, as Allie wrote in the chat, 1,000 of you watching live with us. Over 1,000 now.
Too cool.
I think that's a record for us, so thank you guys on YouTube. We really, really appreciate that. Hit us with a thumbs up. Also, if you're new to watching us, we do this every day. We're with you 5 days a week, talking Broncos every single day.
We're there when emergencies come up.
Yep. Next week we'll be at the Senior Bowl, talking about those quarterbacks and seeing maybe which one Nathaniel Hackett might like. Or
do you hope Hackett goes down there?
Of course.
Now I would expect George Paton to go down there. Now that this is settled, no reason for him not to go, and we know how he likes to have his eyes on guys. But I hope Hackett decides to go down there too.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really important place to be, in my opinion.
Especially with all of these quarterbacks.
Exactly.
Right.
You got to see these guys in person. Maybe he loves Carson Strong. Who knows what this could mean. But anyways, we do this every day. And again, if you're new, we'd love to have you. Also, you can follow us on Twitter at DNVR Broncos. We're verified now. How about that?
Let's go, baby.
But yeah, and also you can send in your super chats that we're going to get to here in just a second. Anything else that you wanted to touch on before we move on a little bit?
This is it's such an exciting move. Of course, bringing in a head coach is such an exciting move, but a guy that just brings excitement is just so refreshing.
So refreshing.
And you see what Brandon Staley was able to do in terms of changing the culture in Los Angeles, and also get a winning record as they did that. I think Nathaniel Hackett's going to be able to have that type of impact right away from the moment he steps in the door. And the Broncos defenders, all of them, are used to a defensive-minded head coach. I think they're going to really enjoy having this jolt of offense and not feel like they're being disrespected not having a defensive head coach.
And we probably should have listened to the old adage that you always go opposite of what you did before, right? You had the old defensive guru, now and who was not exactly an energy guy, and now you get the young, energetic offensive guy. Obviously, both first-time head coaches. That's the overlap there, but very, very different from what the Broncos are used to. And I think that's going to have an instant, immediate impact.
And while the Broncos didn't go with the 36-year-old Kevin O'Connell in terms of super young, Nathaniel Hackett, 42 years old, still very young. The average age of coaches is 10 years older than that in the NFL, so the Broncos still went very young with this hire.
You think basically we now know that O'Connell was the backup plan?
That's what it seems like, Yep.
No offense to him, but the fact that they make this move right now with the Jaguars looming on Nathaniel Hackett. Hackett was their first choice. Quinn may have been their second choice. O'Connell was probably the fallback.
I think, and the Dan Quinn.
I would put Hackett, or I'd put O'Connell above Quinn.
The Dan Quinn thing, very interesting, as it now looks like he's not going to get any of these jobs, and he's removed himself from consideration.
You can't hire me. I didn't want your job anyway.
Yes, exactly. Now that's how I feel this happened. The Quinn camp is definitely trying to spin it as they want us to think that he pulled his name out of the hat before the Broncos made this decision. I don't think so. I think if George Paton wanted Dan Quinn, he was going to get Dan Quinn.
It's not a coincidence. It happens right after.
A coincidence?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Even I wouldn't make that dad joke pun. Yeah, it's not a coincidence that it happens right after the Hackett hire and then Eberflus getting the job in Chicago, which, if we weren't talking about the Broncos hire, I think would be an interesting discussion, because that to me is a really curious pick.
I think so
for the
too.
Bears.
And as it relates to Quinn and the not a coincidence, I also don't think it's a coincidence that it came out last night that Hackett was going to get an interview. I honestly, I don't even necessarily know if that's true. A lot of times these agents leak stuff to the big reporters because they want something out there. And I think, that's just a classic negotiation tactic. You don't want someone to feel like they have unlimited time to make a decision. So the Hackett camp puts a little bit of pressure on George Paton, and George Paton gives in and says, all right. You're our guy. Come on.
I love it.
Home.
I love that Nathaniel Hackett did that.
Of course.
Said, I'm done waiting. I want my job now. And obviously, he knew that things with the Broncos went very well. He knew the reason he got back on that plane was because that was part of the plan, not the end of it. And I absolutely love that George Paton played his cards perfectly right. He did not. He let the process play out. He got time to think about it. He didn't rush anything. And shockingly, the Broncos made the first hire of all 9 openings. But then I love that he said, no, we're not going to lose you. You're coming here. He gets a 4-year deal. So maybe George Paton will get a chance to hire one more coach if this thing doesn't go right, because George Paton has 5 years left on his deal. And honestly, guys, I'm surprised with the Broncos ownership situation up in the air. I thought a new head coach could have got 5-year deal. Instead 4. So maybe it wasn't as hard to sell a coach on this.
At least the chat likes my dad jokes. I also hear that Nathaniel Hackett likes dad jokes. So, maybe that's another reason why he's got to come on the pod.
He's got a good vibe, but he's also got a dad vibe to him.
He definitely does.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, I could totally see him walking in wearing the New Balances and making a couple of dad jokes.
100%.
And
that's what he does.
And the thing is,
but he also references Step Brothers, which means he's young enough.
But that is that's a 2007 movie. I mean, that's right there in 40-something dad territory.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, 2007. How old would he have been then?
He would have been 28, 27 years old, because he's got a December birthday. So he's 27 years old. If you're anywhere from 40 to 48, 49 years old, Step Brothers. I made the 40-year-old version reference yesterday. I'm sure he would get that. I'm sure that's in his wheelhouse too.
You know what else I think he's going to be able to do? You know who else is 42 years old and players absolutely love him?
Who?
Kyle Shanahan.
Oh,
and
he's 42.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things that Kyle Shanahan does is he plays the hip music. He plays the thing that the players are listening to, not just on the practice field, but in the facility. Yep. Before meetings start, and he's wearing Yeezys, and he's wearing the things that these guys wear. I don't know if Hackett's going to be wearing Yeezys.
Strikes me as more of a New Balance guy.
but
maybe he will be. And I just guarantee that not just on the practice field when the public can see it, he's going to connect with these players so well. And how has that worked for Kyle Shanahan? Look, Kyle Shanahan still has a losing record as a head coach, but just all of the intangibles he brings makes it seem like he's just such a better coach, and I guess a lot more stability. And we all know Kyle Shanahan's not getting fired despite a losing record. That's exactly what Nathaniel Hackett will bring as well with those intangibles.
The thing is, getting the music right isn't that hard. It shouldn't even be that hard if you're a 60-year-old head coach, right? You have somebody.
Getting music at all was hard.
Yeah, I mean, you have somebody around, and you just ask, what do you think the guys want to vibe to?
Why don't you just ask the guys?
Yeah, exactly. Or even if you don't ask the players, have somebody young around you that you say, hey, what kind of music is going to work? I mean, I think just because you're 60 years old doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to do that, but. For whatever reason, it was beyond Vic's range. I mean, the idea of music at practice for the Broncos was something endemic to the opponent.
I once watched an unnamed head coach that I covered at one point lose his absolute mind because they were playing music that had curse words in it. And I was like, "You are so out of touch, man. What are you doing?"
Well. Were there fans there?
No.
Okay.
It's closed practice.
That's the thing. If for training camp, I get that you're going to want to go with the edited version. You've got little kids around, even though they're going to hear plenty of saucy stuff from Bill Kolar if he's back as D-line coach. But closed practice, come on.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I want to tie a bow on this with a direct question. 1 out of 10, rate the hire.
I'm gonna go an 8. They got offense. They got a guy that's going to be able to connect with players, and they got energy.
Yep.
7. He's he got the offense. It may open the door to a huge upgrade at quarterback. but you don't know what he's going to be like when the spotlight's on him, when all the choices are on him until you get thrown in there. That's why, look, I've always said I would only hire people who've done the job before.
I'm trying to bring myself back in time, 24 hours, to give the answer I would have given yesterday, because obviously woke up this morning, got the news. I'm like crushing all the Hackett content I can, and now I love the guy. But try to remove myself from that. And I think yesterday I would have said 7.5.
There we go.
It does knock off the things I've been looking for. It is offense. It is energy. The offensive numbers are the one thing that are keeping me from, doing backflips over this. It's not that impressive, especially on a consistent basis without Aaron Rodgers. But I don't think that's why they hired him. I don't think they hired him because they think he's an offensive genius. I think that's a part of it. I really think they hired him for that energy, that personality, lighten up that building a little bit. It doesn't it sometimes feel really tight in there?
Absolutely.
Tight and stale. I mean, obviously the season did not go well, but there were times being out there at the start of practice where it had all the energy of a
funeral.
No, it had all the energy of the first round of like the Greater Hartford Open.
Oh boy!
Not a big golf tournament. The Greater Greensboro Open is, I think, what I said when Troy Rank and I were talking one day about it, because it was just so blah. And training camp was that way. I mean, frankly,
that's when I lost it this year during training camp. I was like, there's no energy from this team.
Music, it's a little thing, I know, but something like that can go a long way. There was no energy, and thus there was no energy on the hillside among the fans.
No.
There was no juice to it, to use Vance Joseph's term. And I think one of the first tasks here, no matter who the quarterback is, if it's Aaron Rodgers, that energy is going to come regardless. But maybe it won't be Aaron Rodgers. Maybe he decides to retire and try to lobby his way into the Jeopardy job. I think he's still going to find ways to generate a little bit more oomph, as Vic Fangio might have said. Yeah. There was no oomph, even though Vic Fangio would use that term. There was no oomph for the last 3 years.
I love the chat today. Everyone's jumping in, giving their ratings. Yeah. We've got Brendan Vogt calling us the Bronc Daddies. We've got everyone participating. Of course, record numbers. Love this. Shout out to you guys. And someone did ask in there, hey, what does the money from Super Chats go to? That goes right back into the studio so we can do things like, the new 3. Oh, there's my alarm.
Whoa, later than mine.
Well, that's an emergent. That's like a last case, like. Yeah. You better be up by now. Okay. If you're not, get the hell out of bed.
My alarm started at like 8:30, so like if you had not called me at like 8:06 this morning, the earliest I would have been here would have been like 9:15 or so.
Yeah. The ironic thing is that I'm, probably the latest riser, because both of you guys are pretty early morning guys, especially Zach.
No, Zach's an early morning guy.
Zach's definitely the earliest.
I'm definitely not a morning person.
And I was the one who had to wake you guys up today. That's true. Allie woke me up.
I kid you not. This is the first day I've slept through my alarm. So I was supposed to be up at 6, and you called me way after that.
Yeah, 7.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, just crazy how this works out.
It is funny. But to answer the question, the super chat money goes right back into our shows to try to get us better equipment, all that stuff. So we can put on better shows for you guys.
Exactly. And why don't a lot of people, you drop in your scores or rating this higher. Everyone, drop your rating for this higher. We want to see what you guys think. It seems like a lot of people are right around that 7 and 8 number.
Yeah, and it's hard to be higher than that before before we see anything from the guy. So I think it's cautious optimism from most people about this hire. And yeah, you don't even have to be cautiously optimistic over at Green Mountain Dental. You can just be straight up optimistic. And you can schedule a cleaning, x-ray, and exam to get a free Sonicare toothbrush over there. I've said this before, but I'll say it again. You walk in there today, people will be talking about Nathaniel Hackett. It's just the kind of place it is. They're all big Denver sports fans. It's family-owned dentistry. They come down here, they hang out, watch Avs games. They're big Colorado sports fans, and they're part of our family. They've supported us for a very long time. So if you're looking for a dentist in the metro area, go check out Green Mountain Dental.
And we all need that jolt of coffee in the morning to get us going, and there's no better jolt than Strava Craft Coffee, where not only is it delicious coffee, but it packs that CBD punch, and CBD can help relieve aches, pains, headaches, so much going on in your body. It can help relieve. And if you want this, they've got a 2-in-1 punch for you. Use the code DNVR25 over at checkout for 25% off your first purchase over at StravaCraftCoffee.com, and then subscribe after that, and you'll get 20% off every single order after that. So check out all the delicious coffee they have at StravaCraftCoffee.com and use that code DNVR25.
All right, guys. Let's start with the super chats.
Yes.
I think we have a few here, so let's get rolling on the super chats, Al.
I have to hold on.
Okay. Oh, that's a good score there. 7.1415.926. How much more do you?
Well, I mean, that's the digits
pi.
of pi, except
more can
3
you do,
instead of
Mace?
7 to lead it off.
Oh, a super chat.
Okay.
Kind of needs to be bigger so I can
Yeah,
read
I
it.
can't.
All right. I know it's from the homie Brian. He says, yeah, I think so. Called it. It's Hackett season, gentlemen. Tamale sealed it. Also still waiting for my free shirt for taking Mace to the last question of 3-Ring Circus last year. Hackett season. Love y'all. Of course, he has to get in a little jab there.
Yeah.
Well, come get it. You were here.
There we go.
No, but yeah, the tamales were a strong move from Hackett. I think that was what sealed the deal for him, too.
I think the Margs probably brought out even more jokes between Hackett and George Paton, and obviously this is a guy that it's going to be easy to fall in love with.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very, very true. And I think, that sense of humor and stuff, it just goes a long way, I think, in building relationships, and that definitely helped him in this.
It did. It absolutely did, to take over the front runner of Dan Quinn.
Yep. Which, again, the Dan Quinn thing is just crazy. I wonder, how he feels about all this.
He's got to feel sick. I mean, who loves this is Jerry Jones.
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Jerry Jones, probably thought about firing his coach in order to keep Dan Quinn. Now he doesn't have to, and it looks like Kellen Moore is coming back, too. Wow.
Cowboys fans, if you see, the reaction on social media, they are thrilled right now.
Yeah.
That Dan Quinn's coming back.
And Kellen Moore really didn't advance at all in this whole process.
Just like I said, it seemed like he fell off the cliff the second half of the season.
He probably hates Vic Fangio.
He does. Vic getting a interview to be the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, although some other reports are coming out now saying that it's the Jaguars are very close to hiring Byron Leftwich, as they should.
Well, at least I could predict someone's head coach hire correctly.
I mean, hey, good for Vic for getting that interview, but I think that was it appears it was just a fallback. I mean, there were reportedly snags between the Jaguars and Byron Leftwich contractually, and obviously they've had issues because some coaches have not wanted to work with Trent Baalke, their general manager. And, I mean, why Shahid Khan is sticking with him, I don't know.
There's a report out there that they're going to hire Adrian Wilson to be from Arizona to be their general manager and kick Trent Baalke out.
That's the smartest thing they could do. and every indication is that Leftwich did not want to work with Baalke, that he wanted to return to Jacksonville. Of course, he played there, but didn't want to work with Baalke. That's the best thing the Jaguars could do is move on. If there's one person that coach after coach is saying, I don't want to work with this guy, get rid of him. What are you doing?
That's crazy. If someone if you want to interview someone, that person comes in for an interview and then says, yeah, I want to work here too, just not with that guy.
Not exactly, but there was awkwardness with Vic Fangio and George Paton. Vic Fangio helped bring George Paton in 1 year. It doesn't go well. George Paton moves on from Vic, and that's what is so good about this situation is George Paton and the new head coach love each other and are on the exact same page. That's so important. You need the owner, GM, head coach, offensive coordinator, and quarterback to be on the same page. Right now, the Broncos did only have one of those guys. Now they've got two of them. Now it's about making those other 5 connections.
Yep. All right, let's move on in the super chats here. Next one from Scotty Moore. Hackett has seen the game from a lot of different angles, playing, coaching, offense, and defense. Maybe take on an overview role and hire an OC that calls the plays. And there's another one that follows up that from Willie, who says, who are the OC and DC candidates for Hackett? We'll obviously have a lot more on that in the coming days. And That's kind of the fun part of these coaching searches is you get one part done, but then there's more coaches to search for.
Well, you mentioned Hiro Ivero on the defensive side. Another guy that Aaron Wilson of Pro Football Network is pointing out is Adam Stanovich, who is Green Bay's offensive line coach and run game coordinator. Because every indication is that the Packers are going to promote Luke Getsy to offensive coordinator.
I wish the Broncos would just give a middle finger to that unwritten rule and say we're taking both.
They may. They may try.
They may try, but I don't think they will. And I think probably you're going to hear in the next maybe not 24 hours because they'll have to adhere to the Rooney Rule, but it won't be long before Luke Getsy is their OC in Green Bay.
And just to the other first point that was made, Nathaniel Hackett actually got his start as a coach in football as an assistant linebackers coach at UC Davis. And then he was actually the defensive assistant to the coordinators. And then he also had some specialist positions that he had. So he has been all over the league and now only a coordinator in the NFL on the offensive side of the ball.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of how it works in coaching is you take your foot in the door however you possibly can. And you learn a lot in those early days. And he obviously has absolutely paid his dues. It's always crazy when you look at these long resumes of a guy who's 42 and he's done like 27 different jobs.
Yep, almost his 20th season in coaching this year.
Pretty impressive.
And he was around football his entire life because of his dad, Paul Hackett, being a head coach, being a coordinator, position coach in the NFL. So, I mean, he's been basically learning about football basically his entire life.
And that's obviously something that was going to be important in this coaching search was not having someone who's so focused on one side of the ball. So I think you will see him. Obviously, he's going to have a lot of say in the style of offense and maybe the play calling. I think that'll be interesting to find out what he wants to do. But
I would think he would be the play caller.
I think so. But again, I think the Broncos hired him for other reasons, not just that. And I think that he is going to take on much more of that CEO role than Vic Fangio did.
I think that the Zach Taylor model is kind of perfect because he calls the plays in Cincinnati, but he isn't involved in every offensive meeting because he wants to know what's going on the defensive side. So a lot of the guts of game planning is actually tasked to Brian Callahan there. And I think whoever his offensive coordinator is going to have kind of a lot of the nuts and bolts of the game planning, allowing Hackett to focus on running the entire team.
And that, that perspective can be really valuable for the other side of the ball.
Right.
Nathaniel Hackett should be telling his defensive coordinator what he hates when defenses do to his offense, especially because he's running the offense that a lot of teams are, trying to run at this point. So that's really valuable. I always thought like if Pat Shurmur went to Vic Fangio and said like, what's something that offenses do that you just hate to defend? Vic would say something like, there's nothing. I can defend everything.
Right.
So you want that perspective from both sides of the ball. But yeah, those are the early candidates for those positions. Let's go to the next question. Court Nelson says, I want to be optimistic for Hackett, but it's going to be hard to get excited if he brings in Doug Marrone and a bunch of other stooges from Jacksonville. Please give us hope. I understand that sentiment.
Yeah, me too. But Court, we didn't mention any of those guys from Jacksonville right now, so you hope that he goes that way. But I do agree. I think getting the band back together from Jacksonville is going to be a tough sell for Broncos fans, especially with just how much excitement that Nathaniel Hackett himself brings. That would really feel like a cold water on the party.
Yeah.
I mean, you've had eventually successful head coaches who are part of failed administrations before. I mean, Hackett himself got fired from Jacksonville.
It's a vibe thing.
Yeah, you don't want to see the whole band come together, but I'm not going to raise a stink in any way if there are a few ex-Jaguars coaches on this staff.
How would you feel if Doug Marrone was the offensive coordinator?
I mean, I think it does bring the vibes down a little bit.
Okay, Mace?
In terms of a vibe check.
Who's the quarterback?
You don't know.
I'm fine with it. Look, Hackett's probably going to call the plays. I'd be okay with it.
Okay.
Wouldn't bother me.
I'm not against it because I think it's more of like bringing in someone you trust who you want their feedback on things and has been a head coach. I understand that, but I'm with you. It doesn't like excite me in any way.
Right. Exactly.
And of course, Marrone's doing his football rehab on Nick Saban's staff right now too.
So the best football rehab anyone
Right.
could get.
So I mean, maybe he got some things out of that if he ends up coming back to work with Nathaniel Hackett. I mean, one thing that now Marrone did step on a lot of toes in his times as head coach, Buffalo and Jacksonville. His departure from Buffalo is really fascinating because after a 9-7 season, he basically walked away, and Buffalo was basically content to let him go. So, but it would be a little different though with him being a lieutenant rather than the guy in charge.
I think it's so funny that like coaches get fired and they're like, I'm just gonna go be undefeated and win a national championship at Alabama. Then I'll get another job.
Right, on my off time, pretty much.
Title ring's a title ring.
Yeah, exactly. All right, what's next? From Alex. Thanks for getting up early to discuss this in case you needed another cup of coffee. He hits us with the super chat. Appreciate that. Probably going to need like 3 today.
Thank you, Alex. Really appreciate you.
All right, next one. From Z Reeves. What do you guys think the Saints will do at head coach? Love from Iowa. Go Broncos.
I think they just promote from within. Dennis Allen, who we're familiar with in Denver, he's the front runner.
Yeah, I mean, the big question is what they do in terms of team building. I don't think it's much of a question on the coach. And Allen was a hot candidate anyway. Hopefully for him, because he's here. I'd like to see him do. He was here in 2011. I'd like to see him do well. Hopefully he gets a long contract, because if they do need to probably have a year where they tear it down and start rebuilding.
Yeah, I wonder how they would handle the contract situation if my tinfoil hat theory about Sean Payton is true. Like, do they give him a 1-year contract?
You'd have to pay him out. So you got to give him a 2 or 3 year contract and just eat the money.
I don't think contracts are usually no fewer than 4 years.
Right, I know, but
Yeah.
if they, if everyone's in on this plan,
You'd still give him a 4-year contract.
fair enough. And then
You're an NFL team. You can afford that.
You just adjust it or something.
Yeah.
You'd have some sort of language in there that makes it easy to get out of or whatever.
Right.
Next one. From Darth Swartz. I feel like Green Bay's getting ready to get Drew Lock and Jerry Jeudy, and we're going to get Green Bay's quarterback and their wide receiver.
You guys okay with that swap?
Let's see. Let's put it into the trade machine.
It comes out pretty even. Comes out pretty even right there. I guess you got to throw in it for a few first round picks too.
Yeah, you'll take Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams for sure as an upgrade over Drew Lock
Yes,
and Jerry
you would.
Jeudy.
Yes,
Let me
you
ask
would.
you guys this, though. I mean, Jerry Jeudy, you're deep at receiver. You should be fine. You may get Devontae Adams if you get Rodgers. What if the Packers said, hey, we'll make this deal with you, but we want Pat Surtain?
Yeah.
Oh, God. People are just going to hate this, but you have to do it.
So
You have to do
who's
it.
in it?
Say 2 first-round picks, Jerry Jeudy and Pat Surtain.
Oh, both of them.
So the equivalent of 4 first-round picks.
No one, like, I just know so many people are going to disagree with this, but yeah, I would do it.
I would do it in a heartbeat. I'm sorry.
If the goal is to win a Super Bowl, which I'm pretty sure it is, then you just do the deal, and it hurts, and you're gonna be sad, when Pat Surtain gets his gold jacket one day, but you just do it, and if you win a Super Bowl, no one cares.
Yep. Exactly. And who was the cornerback they drafted last year?
The kid from Georgia. I forget his name.
Maybe you get him in return.
Oh, Eric Stokes,
Yes. Maybe you get him in return, and that's how it works out.
possibly. All right, next one. From Edward. I'm so freaking happy. Hackett, baby. Let's go. Quinn didn't get a second interview with Denver, and the Bears are hiring another head coach. Thanks, guys. Yeah, I love the energy. And, again, if you, just absorb some Nathaniel Hackett content today, anything where you see him on video, or maybe, I don't know if he has been on a podcast like Dan Quinn was, but you will end up being fired up.
Yes, you will. You will. You'll be energized from it.
Absolutely. He not short on energy, and a lot of times I wonder with these coaches, like, how do they do it? I don't have to wonder that with him. Like, he is so chocked full of energy.
He is.
I understand how he does it all day, every day.
Yep. And I got that feeling from talking to people who met Nathaniel just by meeting him on Monday in person. He just gives off such a different vibe. And I think that was a huge thing for George Paton, because that's a huge thing of leadership, is being able to change the culture. And in his, 8 or 9 hours around Broncos people, more than just George Paton and the search committee, he certainly gave off that vibe.
Yeah, there was another quote in that article from Blake Bortles where he said, it takes about 5 minutes of talking to this guy to know he's a different bird.
Yep, exactly. And
All
a
right.
very different bird from Vic Fangio.
Yeah, and that's what's, I think, another exciting part of this is you have this very unique guy who comes in, very special. And if he hits, then it's like it can't be replicated, right? Like you got your own secret sauce, your own formula. I think Sean McVay is a very unique and different individual where you can't just say like, oh, that's the next Sean McVay. Now, you hoped that you could got that if you go with O'Connell, but he has that energy too that just it's not like other people. So if you do hit on this and Hackett ends up being the Broncos coach for a long time, it's like he's your own very specific brand of what you do.
And 42 years old. He could be the coach here for 25 years if all works out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And everyone can cross their fingers for that. It'll be funny in, 2040 something when we're talking about the Broncos need to get a young head coach.
Yep. When he retires in 2047.
Oh my gosh. Now we're really going crazy here.
It's just, it's a day where hope springs eternal.
Then we're talking about the Broncos doubling their Super Bowl total that they have now. They'd have, 6 Super Bowls.
They would have to for him to last that long.
Yeah.
Even Mike Shanahan couldn't last even close to that long with 2.
Yep.
I mean, and that's the thing. They're even the best coaches, unless they're named Belichick or Shula, tend to have a shelf life on them.
Definitely.
But what I love is that, if Vic Fangio worked out, you're talking like a 5 or 7, or Jim Caldwell. Let's say they would have hired Jim Caldwell. You're talking about like a 5-year window. This could be a decade window if it all works out.
All right, guys, let's jump into the more? We got more?
We have a few people asking press conference today, so just a brief.
We don't know yet.
We do not know yet. They have not set that up. And like we said, that this is different. Typically, when you get a guy in the building, you don't let him leave. Well, the Broncos let Nathaniel Hackett leave, so he's out in Green Bay. He's going to be making his way to Denver at some point soon, and then that's when we will know about a press conference. But I would expect it to be today or tomorrow.
There is, by the way, at this moment, no flight schedule, at least that I can find on FlightAware, from Green Bay to Centennial.
So they've still got to figure out the logistics.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's snowing here. It's not supposed to be a bad snow, but it is snowing here.
And I don't want to disappoint anyone, but the Broncos aren't necessarily notorious for having big moments on a Friday.
So you think it could be on Monday?
I think, I'm saying it's not going to happen today, clearly, or at least it seems that way.
I think they announced either John Fox or John Elway got announced on a Friday.
Interesting.
What they could do, though, is just do it all by Zoom, and then it could be, this afternoon or something.
It could, for sure, and that would make sense. If I had to put my money down, which I've been wrong on a few things on This Is Coaching Search, I would pick Monday.
Yeah, and have a big unveiling down there, and probably in the Pat Bowlen Fieldhouse.
Yep.
Okay, we also had a lot of people just want your instant reactions on Vic and the Jaguars and him interviewing them. It was a lot in the chat.
We talked a little bit about it earlier. I think it was a favor. I don't know from who, but
I don't. Byron Leftwich is the perfect candidate for them to rebuild the culture, to be a great hire for Trevor Lawrence. It has to be him. With Vic, I just wouldn't get it at all. You have Trevor Lawrence. What are you doing not giving him the best opportunity to be the best Trevor Lawrence he could be?
Unless they were doing the whole thing of interviewing him to be their defensive coordinator.
That makes more sense.
A lot of sense.
And that's where, okay, it wasn't great experience, but he's been a head coach before, and maybe could be someone who'd be an excellent right-hand person to Byron Leftwich.
Byron Leftwich and Vic Fangio would give me good feelings about the future
they
of
would,
the
they would have knocked it out of the park in my mind.
And if Trent Baalke is gone, and there's a report out of Arizona saying Baalke's out, Adrian Wilson would be in as the GM, and that Byron Leftwich kind of put an ultimatum out. So you get Baalke out, and you have Leftwich as head coach, Vic Fangio as defensive coordinator. Jaguars fans ought to feel fantastic about it.
And I feel great about Byron Leftwich going in and telling them how it's going to be. Because you only get one shot at this, really, as a head coach, sometimes two. But you go in there and you say, look, this is Jacksonville. I know how hard it is to win here. If we're going to do it, we're going to do it my way.
With all respect to Nathaniel Hackett, that sort of moxie is part of why I wanted Byron Leftwich to be on the Broncos list.
Oh,
Yeah.
But how about this? The Saints are requesting right now to interview Byron Leftwich. It's maybe not a done deal. Maybe Vic Fangio will be the head coach there.
I think Byron Leftwich is just playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. He's like
Nathaniel
about to
Hackett.
sign the contract. He's like, hey, hold on, my phone's ringing. Oh, you guys want to interview me? all right, you're going to have to up that a couple million each year.
Like, I know how much you paid Urban Meyer.
Right.
I know you have the cash to do this.
I'm telling you, he's in a position of great leverage. And I think he's using it.
Yep. Or maybe it was Byron Leftwich's agent that put it out there that Nathaniel Hackett was having a second interview to then get Nathaniel hired to then make him the only candidate out there.
There you go. Oh, another one. Okay. All right. Eventually, we're going to have to get to the questions. But, I guess we've got all day. Jake Girard. Every time we saw Vic with enthusiasm, we dominated, a.k.a. Dallas game. And only game, this is what the team needs. Bring the juice and run a jet sweep.
My favorite thing that happened in that Dallas Cowboys game was Vic Fangio's energy and enthusiasm, and because it was just so unique from what we had seen. We were used to the confused look on the sideline face, not just from Vic, but from Vance too. For 4 years, we were used to that. 4.5 years at that point. That's what we were used to. And then we see Vic be so fired up, so pumped. That was the thing that I liked the most from that game. Even though the Broncos were up 30-0, it was the head coach's mentality. Now they're going to get that every single week. It's not going to be an anomaly when it happens. It's not going to be like, oh my gosh, yes, he finally turned into the guy the Broncos need. No, the Broncos hired the guy that they needed. So I absolutely love that. I think it's a fantastic point, Jake.
Yeah, and in the end, Vic needed his own bulletin board material to get excited for a game.
Yep.
All right, one more from OPMG. Any idea what a trade package for Rodgers would look like? We just talked a little bit about that.
We're actually going to do this on our piece on thednvr.com. So if you're tuning in, we're also not only 5 days a week, but we also have a website, thednvr.com, where we not only have our podcasts, these live pods, we've got videos breaking things down. We broke Nathaniel Hackett down a couple weeks ago. We also have articles where we're dropping articles left and right, so make sure to check that out. And we do a series every week called Broncos Pick'em, and our topic this week is, how much are you willing to trade for Aaron Rodgers? And I think what we can all say is a lot. You're trading multiple first-round picks, and Mace threw it out there. You willing to trade some players, too.
Not going to have anything to pick next week, though, unless we're picking the winner of the Senior Bowl.
What do you mean?
We're not picking the Pro Bowl.
That's what I mean. Sure. We're not picking the Pro Bowl.
Give me the AFC. All right, we're going to jump into the comments on the website now, which you can leave if you are a member at thednvr.com. And, I'm just going to jump to the ones that came in post-hire.
Let's do it.
And if you want us to circle back to the ones that came in pre-hire, then, just copy them over to tomorrow. From Hey to Your Peers, happy Thursday, everyone. First off, I've loved every step of this coaching search with you guys. It's been it's been the most enjoyable offseason I've had with the team since I started following a few years ago when I moved to Denver. Thank you. We love that. Second, wow, we have a coach, and it's not the guy anyone really thought. I know y'all will cover so much about this on the pod before getting to this comment, but I'm hoping y'all can bolster my confidence in Coach Hackett since he was number 3 on my list of the 3 second interviews because I want to be all in on him. And I think one thing that we all said when it came down to this final 3 is, you'd be happy with all 3 of these guys. I think they did a really good job in that search. And it just kind of came down to what did George Paton value? And it feels to me like he really valued the energy that Nathaniel Hackett brings to the table.
Got to jump in with something here. Mike Kliss of 9 News tweeting that the introductory press conference for Hackett will be Friday.
Oh, I was wrong again.
And Joe Ellis expected to have statement on team's ownership situation early next week. Per source, quote, expectation is he will state Broncos will be put up for sale.
Okay, all right. It's never a dull moment. We'll be doing finish the coaching search, start the owner search right after one another in the middle of a coordinator search.
Yeah, exactly. In the middle of a quarterback
search. We'll be obviously doing our own quarterback search down there in Mobile. Okay, so there you go. A Friday press conference. I didn't think I would see it.
You know what, though? Like I said, they've done Friday things before. I mean,
they have, just not in my time covering the team.
Junior Pancake says, wake up, boys. We got a coach. I love it. Some early morning news for us. Howler's Bro Surf says, the domino has fallen. We have a coach. I was hoping for KOC, but Hackett can be exciting. I know I'm in the minority here, but I'm really hoping that he doesn't bring Rodgers with him. Give me Wilson or give me a young draft pick. Rodgers' stance aside, something I feel is lost in the conversation if they are both available, and I know this is a magic question, is there going to be a difference in draft price to acquire Wilson or Rodgers? Wilson may fetch an additional 1 or 2, but you're going to get him for so much longer. Wilson is the answer to me.
I agree. If you had the choice between the two, I'd go with Wilson.
So would I.
For a lot of reasons. Now, age is part of it. Other reasons that we've discussed, and I don't think we need to belabor today.
No. Yeah, but I mean, if you have the choice, you definitely go Wilson, in my opinion. I know there's people that disagree with that, because
but I get the indication that Rodgers is the Broncos' first choice.
I mean, every domino that's falling is pointing towards that. Yeah. So it's hard to argue with that. And I know that people, are debating this now or whatever. If you get either one, it's a dream. You're getting a Hall of Fame quarterback. Like, you'd never think that would happen once. It happened with Peyton Manning. You kind of lucked into a Hall of Fame quarterback. If that happens again, well, someone's really looking over the Broncos.
It's serious.
You think Rodgers would still keep doing those weekly Pat McAfee show?
Oh,
no, you do weekly DNVR Broncos podcast.
There we go. I love it.
From Mike Trout, if the ownership situation isn't resolved in a world where Rodgers is a Bronco, how do you all think it impacts the ownership situation? For example, sale price and who is bidding for ownership.
Don't think it has any impact on the sale price at all.
If it happened before the sale, I think it would help. Maybe, who knows? It's hard to know how much something can affect something when we're talking on a scale of billions. But
100 mil?
The value of Aaron Rodgers on your team is every game, is crazy sold out, even though they already sell out every game, but you don't have any no-shows. Your private suites are getting filled with hot shots every week.
It's got a short-term boost, right, but I don't think, like, when we're talking about a $1 billion purchase and or multi-billion dollar, and you're also talking about what your plan is beyond Empower Field at Mile High. You're talking about development, etc. I think even though there'll be a short-term boost to the sales, I really don't think this is going to have much of an effect on the sale price of the Broncos, whether you get Aaron Rodgers or not. It's an incredible asset regardless, and the purchase is being made for generations, not just what happens the next 4 years.
And I agree. And that's what but even if it did make an impact, we wouldn't even be able to see it.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Because it's going to be a ton anyways.
Right. It might be a couple million. I don't know. But
the thing that'll have an impact is the auction style sale and the obligation to go to the highest bidder. And that, like we said yesterday, that just opens the door for somebody to come in and say, and blow everyone out of the water, because it's a no-fuss way to hire an NFL team.
And in my opinion, this auction, it could get crazy. I don't really think there's a price too high to pay for the Denver Broncos. Especially if you're a mega billionaire. Just whatever someone says, you just say a little bit more.
I mean, like I said, not that I expect this group to be in, but if you had the Manchester City ownership group come in, literally that family is worth $1 trillion. What would stop them from saying, oh, well, we could develop some real estate in a booming market and build a stadium and all that? What's to stop them from saying $10 billion?
Nothing.
I love it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Get someone with $1 trillion in here.
Every Bolin kid, a billionaire on their own.
Then, man, that would be something else. And the last one coming in from our friend Samuel Bisu. He says, just want to say great show, guys, and in George we trust.
You gotta. Yep. Hasn't given you any reason not to, unless you think passing on Justin Fields and Mac Jones is a reason to break the trust. At least he hit the pick. The pressure to hit that pick went up tenfold, and he did it. So there you go. George Paton has his guy. The Denver Broncos have their guy, and it's an exciting day. Cannot wait to hear from him tomorrow. I think it's going to be electric. Once we finally get to hear with him, and of course everyone loves the coach even more after the introductory press conference. Big day in Broncos country. We finally got some offense. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. What a huge day for us on the show. Record numbers, Thank you guys so much. Hit us with a thumbs up on your way out, and we will be with you tomorrow, the next day, throughout the history of the Denver Broncos. So stay with us. We appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.